So next to the Emmaus story, which I keep telling you when you come to my funeral will be the gospel, my next favorite one is this one today, the famous Doubting Thomas gospel. Familiar, very famous, but I think we a lot of times miss the boat when it comes to this and a lot of other scripture accounts. I think we do it because we dress them up too pretty, and we take kind of the punch out of what they're really about. And so we hear the context of this. So the tough disciples, maybe remember they were kind of gruff, outdoor guys, kind of not afraid of much. And so here we hear them, have them locked in a room because they're afraid they're next. And so Jesus comes through the locked door. Does that happen at your house very often? Probably not. And I'm sure they're kind of going, what the heck? And he goes, peace, don't worry. Peace be with you. He has a little conversation with them and prays with them, and then he leaves. But Thomas wasn't there. We don't know why Thomas wasn't there. But Thomas shows up next time, and they're still locked in the room, worried about things. And they go, you would not believe who came. And he goes, nah, I'm from Missouri. I don't buy it. In fact, not until you wouldn't really put the nail in the hands because this wasn't where he was crucified. This would rip off. It was here. So he'd say, unless I can put my hand in his side, I'm not going to believe. So then Jesus shows up a little while later, and Thomas is there. And he goes, Tommy, come here. Now, Quentin, come here a minute. I want to use you. You can pretend you're Jesus here. Just stand here for a minute. So, there's a painting, an Italian painter called Caravaggio, and I'm going to make sure that this gets posted on the website this week if you've never seen it. But he was the one who did a lot of religious paintings, and he didn't do this pious stuff. He painted things very realistically. And so he's got Thomas, and so here's Jesus. So Jesus has got, and in this picture, he's kind of got this slash here about this big, okay? So here's Thomas, and if you look closely at the picture, he has dirty hands, okay? So he's got his finger, and he's got this flap of skin pulling it. Are you tickling? Sorry. Jesus wouldn't have been laughing. I'm just saying. She's got this flap of skin, and he has his hand in it. And the rest of the disciples are going, okay, get out of here. To think that it was anything less than incredulous is not to understand the gospel. Now, it would be bad enough having somebody who you thought was dead walk through the door. No less different, you've heard me say before, than going to the cemetery to visit Grandpa's grave and it would be empty. So let's not dress this up. Let's call it exactly what it is. And so Jesus shows up and he goes, Thomas, come on. And Caravaggio has got this great painting, and he's got his finger right in there going, son of a biscuit. Now, what does this story have to teach us? What does this gospel account have to teach us? We've heard these things so many times that they don't mean anything to us anymore. We have to get back to really the basics about this. The first thing that this gospel tells us is this, that Jesus always comes into our mess. Jesus comes into our messiness. So for these big tough guys who were scared as little rats, He wasn't in the temple sitting on the step saying, gosh, I wish those guys would come visit me. He went to them. He got into their mess, he got into their fear, he got into their doubt, and he talked to them. So Jesus always does that in our lives. Now, many of us think that, we got to get scrubbed up and get our lives straightened out before God listens to us. That's so wrong. It's so wrong. It's only when things get tough, really, that a lot of this other stuff gets out of the way and we're able to see where Jesus already is. So he comes to us in our mess. Secondly, what does he do? He always relates to us in a way that we can understand. It's always about relationships. So remember that Jesus didn't come into this world to give us rules. Remember, that's what he was fighting with the Pharisees. Remember, Jesus only had one law. It was the law of what? Come on. Love. It was the law of love. That's the only thing that he made as an absolute. So all the rest of the shenanigans we came up with. So his was the law of love. And what is love? It's a relationship. It's a relationship. And so he came and he relates to us in a way that... Now, think about some of the other post-resurrection appearances of Jesus. What happens? One time he walks into the apostles and he says what? You got anything to eat? Now, ghosts don't do that. But remember how the disciples would go, so they gave him a piece of dried fish and he ate it. Remember another time, the disciples are out fishing, and what's he do on the shore? He's got a fire built, and he hollers at them, he says, come on and have breakfast. He has breakfast ready for them. Read the scriptures. He relates to us in ways that we can understand relationally. Okay? Third thing is this. If you and I call ourselves disciples, then we need to figure out how we're going to do that in our lives. Okay, so Jesus does not want a church full of admirers. You know, so we sit in the pew and we look at the crucifix and we say, oh, isn't that nice? Look what he did for me. Isn't that nice? That's not what Christians are. Christians are not admirers. That's why we have a 50-day season at Easter to remind ourselves what our job description is that comes to us by our baptism, that this little fella here is going to be baptized in pretty quickly. We're giving you your job description today, pork chop. Yeah. So what is that job description? Is to bring healing and reconciliation and relationship into people's lives. Now, how do I do that, you might ask? I thought you would never ask. Thank you. We do that by doing the same thing that Jesus did. We get involved in people's messes. You and I live in a world nowadays that is increasingly one that doesn't want to get involved, isn't it? So somebody's got family trouble, you go, oh, not my circus, not my monkeys, I'm not getting into that. Okay? Well, how do you think the world is going to change? The reason our headlines today are the way they are is because people don't want to get involved. They're not Christian. I'm just saying. Jesus didn't come to earth and think pious thoughts. No, he got right into the mess. And so if you know somebody whose marriage is in trouble, or somebody's having trouble with their kids that are driving them crazy, those are things that happen in other parishes, not here. If you know people who are having a struggle, and you're aware of that, go into the mess. You don't have to fix it. You just need to let them know that they're not doing it alone. That's all you need to do. But for us to stand by when we know that those things are going on and say, oh, well, she's got to make her own decisions, is crazy. And it certainly isn't Christian. And so that's what we do. We meet people where they're at. And sometimes it happens over a meal or a beer. Do you ever think that that's doing God's work? It is. Just don't do God's work so much that you can't drive home. You get involved in their mess. You speak to them in a way that they can understand, and you try to show them that you're supportive of that. That's really what this season is about. And so we need to kind of make sure that these Gospels aren't dressed up so they're unrealistic. I have no reason to think that the apostles weren't in that upper room kind of going, what the heck? But that's the danger of us repeating these over and over and over again, is that we kind of take the power out. There's no teeth left. Okay? So that's why we don't baptize a little baby by itself with a couple people in a dark church on the Sunday afternoon. The reason that we baptize a baby in community with a church full of people is to remind us that we are in this together, to remind us that we are called to support him and them and you, to make sure that there's somebody else who's going to go into the world, get into people's messes, help to bring them together, help to reconcile things, to keep those connections, those relationships strong. So this isn't some kind of a magic thing that we do in case you drop him on his head. This is becoming a member of a church, a member of a community, a member of people who are in relationship with each other. So, if you think you're ready for this, let's do it. Mom and Dad and the baby and sponsors right by the font.